Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Good? Everybody good?
Yeah, it's amazing. All right.
Hey everybody, I am hope everybody is well. We're live. We're waiting for Mr. Hardin to come up. And they have I don't quite know how they're going to do the questions, but I'm going to ask Mary if I can say hi. I have 2 questions for Hardin on the other 10 lawsuits and Buzbee and the illegal use of Jane Doe, and what he will do about that. Thanks. Okay, so I got that in there. We're waiting. There are now 23 people participating. So what we're waiting for, this is a press conference. It should start 8 minutes. I would say 8 minutes. So, So I don't know who keeps doing the camera like, oh, let's. I was like, oh. Oh, I see. There are more people coming in. If you don't know the news, by the way, if you have a question for me, type it in the field here. And I would say question like that. And then like that. See, depending on its appropriateness, I will post it or not. If it's inappropriate, of course, it either will just won't get posted because we have an algorithm, or it'll get ignored. Depends. But depends. The court outcome is that, Rusty Hardin will have a press conference to discuss developments in the cases filed against Deshaun Watson at 2 p.m. today. Room 339 at the Hilton Americas, Houston, 1600 Lamar Street in downtown Houston. We expect to have a Zoom link. That's what this is. This is the live stream. Now, this live stream does not get you into the Zoom room, but you do get a chance to watch it. Because while they have a Zoom link, I don't know what they're doing live. I know what I'm doing live, right? There you go. So Sugar says, been telling people since the beginning, he's not shooting straight, is he? Let me see if I can give this full screen. There it is. There it is. All right. Okay, that's full screen. I'm off to the side there. Okay. There are now 31 participants in the room. 33%. It's filling up. There's even one Rusty. So I am, let's see here. If anybody, welcome, there's 21 of you. So I'll say, folks, if you have a question or statement, just type it in like Shakur did, like that. Okay. Don't know if I'll be able to ask as a question. One never knows in this crazy society we have in now. Okay. Facts. Yes, facts are, it's interesting. Facts are different to different people. One person's fact tends to be somebody else's. The question that I have is, if there are 9 of 12 clients who volunteer to offer their names, okay, well and good, but what about the other 10? Because we're talking about 23 lawsuits, 22 of which are filings referring to female clients, right? So what about them? And what happens there, right? And I expect Mr. Buzbee is going to talk about, Mr. Hardin is going to talk about Mr. Buzbee's admission that he was using Jane Doe against the law. If I have a client and I know that his name is being dragged through the mud via an illegal process, my first thought is going to be, you know what? I'm suing you, pal. But I'm wondering what Mr. Hardin is thinking in his team, So This, as they say, should be quite interesting. And welcome. Please subscribe to, by the way, to Zinni at Zinni62 Media, or Zinni62 on YouTube. Yeah. So I'm in the Zoom room with you, sort of watching in the gallery, right? Oh, here we go, I think. And Rusty has put his screen so that we view his screen. And it's 2:59, folks. I believe we're going to start in seconds. Seconds. If anybody's out there on Twitter, please retweet. Speaking of which, oh, you haven't missed anything. I think it's starting now. Yeah, no, you haven't missed anything. Yeah, here we go. Here we go.
So, Rachel, this is good. Tish, yeah, good. Got everybody? Hey, everybody ready? All right. Good afternoon. I appreciate y'all coming, and I hope we don't take up too much of your Friday afternoon time. This has been an incredible ordeal for Deshaun. We toyed with the idea of having him here today, so I indicated to some people he might be, and we made a decision just a little while ago that it really wouldn't add anything because I wasn't going to allow him to answer any questions. And I think most of you all understand that. You got investigations going on, and not just police departments have been asked to look at it, but the NFL, there may be other agencies that look at it. And my malpractice insurance wouldn't have me allowing him to talk right now, okay? So if that was the case, then why else have him just sitting here listening to us talk about him? But that is what we're going to do and about this case. I want to start out with you, and then I'm going to ask some of the people that have been working on the case with me to offer some observations. But I think why they're really relevant is you folks have heard read a bunch of petitions. You have read some salacious allegations. You've seen at least two conferences, press conferences by Mr. Buzbee. You've seen, I think we counted 40 Facebook posts, 20-something Instagram posts, and so on. A couple of press conferences. And we've been noticeably quiet. Before I start with some observations and ask others, just so you know who's up here, I'll start right here with Leticia Quinones. Leticia is a member of our firm while also having her own firm. She's of counsel to our firm because we do a lot of cases together and as a member of our firm. She also has her own separate firm. We have over the last 2 to 3 years not only become very close friends, but involved in a lot of cases together. And now you'll see she is listed as another council member of our firm. Rachel Lewis is from LA by way of University of Virginia Law School, University of Virginia undergraduate, UCLA Law School, a couple of clerkships, and has rapidly become, in very short time, an incredibly big asset to our firm. Laura Hollingsworth is a partner in the firm, has been with me and us for 19 years now. Her husband used to be a partner in the firm, now has his own practice, has been intimately involved in this case with us from the beginning, and is a tremendous lawyer. Started out as of counsel when she was having 3 children, and then came back to full-time as a partner. And then if we look here to my right, second is Leah Graham. Leah Graham has been, is a 6, 8, maybe into the 9th year lawyer, has been very, very involved in this case from the very beginning. And I want to go through those introductions because I'm obviously surrounded by 4 women. I wanted to make sure that you did not believe that we went out and hired women to be part of this case because of the type of it. These we were trying to do the count. Our firm now is majority women. The partnerships, until we had one just leave and move to Canada, were half and half women and men. And these lawyers, these friends, these very independent people who make their own judgments, have been involved in this from the beginning as we assess Deshaun and his case. And so when I get through with my comments, I'm going to ask them to make some observations if they have them. I don't know what any of them are going to say, but they have very strong feelings about not just what's going on, but about what the kind of person Deshaun Watson is and what we've done to try to figure out what we believe happened without some type of blanket condemnation of the people that have sued us. But let me start out about you folks, the media. I don't think there's any secret in Houston that I've probably, of the people I know live, probably been the most strongest advocate of what y'all do that I know. Many of you have heard me say in other forums, in my lifetime professionally, first time I was probably ever quoted in 77, and I want the audience to know this, because I don't want to end the criticism about the media. Even when we get criticism, even when we don't want to answer the questions you want to ask, even when we get upset with an article or broadcast. Fact is, I've been doing this as far as publicly being asked questions by the media since 1977. I'm not happy about that figure because you can do the math after that. And since 1977, to this day as I stand here, I have never been misquoted, not by a single member of the media. I have been quoted saying some things I wished I hadn't said, but I said them, okay? And I didn't say they were off the record. I've never had anybody violate the off the record rule. So I stand before you as somebody who's not criticizing the media historically and not criticizing now. Y'all have done your job. You have not been unfair to us. And the reason you haven't been able, it has gone so badly for us in the media, is because we have not been comfortable talking to you. So y'all have done, I mean, everybody in this room or anybody that's on the Zoom call all knows that everybody in the media that I'm aware of actively and aggressively sought to get our side, and we refused. So I've been accused many times in the past of jumping in front of cameras too quickly or whatever. And some of you are not used to the fact that we're not talking to you. And the reason is we don't know what happened for sure. And you've heard me talk all along here about how in the world are we supposed to respond when we don't know the names of the people. And I've seen some talking heads that say, well, I can find out who did it, right? I mean, they just go look and they match up dates and try to figure out. That's not what it's supposed to be about. We're not supposed to have to guess who is accusing us of doing something wrong. And I have been, and you've seen our pleadings, I have been guided throughout this by a strong fear. What if we disagreed with a woman and her petition, and it turned out we were wrong about who it was? You and everybody else would rightly scour us for that. So we have been involved in something that I'm not sure y'all recognize how unique it is. And what's really important is to understand the dangers of what's happened these last 2 weeks. Not just the dangers to Deshaun Watson, but the dangers to anyone in which an opponent decides to try to ruin because it will help their case. Because if you stop and think about it, let's assume for a moment that given the rapidity of social media, that someone decides that is to their advantage, whether it gives them advantage in litigation, whether it gives them advantage in anything else, to go out and just lambaste the target of their ire and lambaste somebody that the media and the public care about that has a reputation so that they will get the coverage they want. Let's assume for a moment, Now, I'm not naming names or suggesting anything, but let's assume for a moment someone decides it is to his or her advantage to be a proponent of a particular social issue or a particular hot button issue, and they pick a target to try to become associated with that activity. And they give all these self-serving social media posts about how wonderful they are and how the champion they are of this or that. And then they make these horribly salacious allegations anonymously. They file a petition, but the other side's answer date is not until the first Monday, 20 days after the first lawsuit's filed against them. In the meantime, the object of it doesn't know who it was. How do I know? How do I prepare? What do I do? And then people who are sympathetic to the social issue being raised say, well, what's the big deal? You can find out. What we heard today in the courts so far, and other judges still to rule, and I don't want to anticipate what they're going to say, but so far, uniformly, in 13 of the cases filed against him, 2 different judges have said, you need to tell them who you are. And actually, Mr. Buzbee, as you may know this morning, halfway through the hearing, said that he was ready to amend as soon as he got all his people. That is something he could have done 2 weeks ago. And all of this howling about us, who is it? We could have filed answers before now. We could have fully investigated. And while we were investigating, our biggest fear was being wrong about somebody. So somebody might say, well, my God, look at all those lawsuits. Does that mean he saw that many people? Folks, this guy has been getting 2 to 3 massages a week. The math I do on that is anywhere from 120 to 140 to 150 massages a year. He's been here since 1918. In the year 2020, all of a sudden, spas shut down. If y'all remember, nobody was getting massages unless they came up with an ad hoc way to do it. So that's partly, that doesn't mean exclusively. He'd gone on Instagram before to line up, and he did. But I've learned, but the fact is, the massage world during the pandemic changed. If you look at these allegations, my calculation is every one of them occur after we shut down for the pandemic. I was in a trial, so I'm pretty mindful of it when everything shut down, and everything shut down the middle of March. First one of these allegations is late March of last year. That doesn't mean that he was never using Instagram before. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that if you are a busy, active athlete and you are traveling constantly as he was, then you are going to have immediate, when you want to get one, you can't predict it ahead of time. And by the way, these football teams don't have this battery of masseuses. I think that's probably something when y'all look into it, start talking, you'll find out it's not the case. All these players, they use different masseuses, which is another thing that I had to learn because of the generational aspect. Millennials live on Instagram. Those of you who are millennials know that. Those of you who are not have probably discovered it long before I. They do business on it. Deshaun lives on Instagram. He does business transactions on Instagram. Other people do. I'm discovering a much more prevalent use of it than I had any idea. I'm not on Instagram. I don't do Twitter. I'm not on Facebook. I am an idiot about modern communications. But what I've learned is everybody else is not. And so there are all kinds of things that one, if you first look at and get people had questions about that I have found are totally normal. Now, once we find out who the names are, and once we find out we no longer have to worry about whether or not we're guessing right about the right person, we'll examine these allegations just like anybody else. And just like I hope y'all will. I trust and hope that once y'all find out who the people are, you will do the same type of investigation of these cases that you've done of us. So I wanted to make sure in my comments that you understood that I am not blaming the messenger that sits in this room or on the TVs. But I do want you to stop and think about the logical implications of what has happened here if it continues. Think about this. Social media, when I started out representing people of some prominence, the whole goal was try to get back and get a response right away. If you go back decades to the Bill Clinton days and all, they had their rapid response team, and their goal was just to have an answer by that night. Okay, but back then everything wasn't posted as soon as it happened. You didn't have all these immediate media sources. Now, when you make the allegation, it's out there right away. And if we're unable to give you an informed answer, it stays and it stays and it stays. And that's been one of the frustrations and problems here. So in a public sense, Deshaun has been absent of defense by his attorneys. I've been through this a few times. I've had lawyers suggest I ought to turn in my bar card, that I didn't know what I was doing, it was horrible. But part of the criticism was based on the same thing now. Our firm does not intend to come out and talk to y'all or the public or anybody else before we have a comfort level about what really happened. And I am not about to accuse 22 women we have now of ill motive, of lying or anything. All I know is we're supposed to start out with you assuming we did not do it, and then wait to prove shows that we did before you make up your mind. That presumption is pretty much gone in the way social media and all is used now. Because once the allegation is there, we know what, you can't take it away. Deshaun is not for one moment arguing about what this has cost him money-wise and all. Y'all have talked about, you've seen about some of the endorsements being withdrawn or suspended because companies understandably don't know whether they want to be associated with him. We're not even addressing that. People can make money back up if they lose money. What they can't get back is their reputation. And that is the most destructive thing about what's happened here, where we can't informedly and responsibly respond to you. And yet we've been hammered time after time. And this is also born of our lack of response to you. It's born of my caution to find out what happened. So one of the reasons I asked some of the lawyers to work on this case that have worked on it to come over to the press conference. First of all, this is the team with the exception of a couple of the men lawyers in the firm. We, as I said before, predominantly women now. We're probably 9 or 16 or 10 and 6, somewhere around there. We're a predominantly woman firm, but we do have men working on these cases too. I don't want to say otherwise. But this has been sort of the core team, along with our investigator and with another senior lawyer in the firm, John McVeigh, who is off on something else now. But when this happened, I get a call to represent Deshaun late on the night of the 16th after the first case is filed. Didn't have a relationship with him, didn't know his age or anybody. I got a call on the referral. So that Sunday, I asked Letitia and Rachel, Letitia won't be too offended, 2 different ages, 2 entirely different backgrounds of a gender that might start out believing this is true. And I know both of their politics and I know both of their attitudes, and they would be instinctively pro-women in an issue that occurs. I wanted them to go down to where Deshaun was, I'll leave that out, and I wanted them to meet with him. And at that time, there were 14 different petitions. I think by the time they arrived to talk to him, there were 16. I may be wrong, but I think it's by the 16th of that. I said, I want y'all to spend 2 days with him, without me, without anybody else. I want you to go over as much as you can with him. And at the end of that day, I want you to tell me what you think. And they did. And they spent the time. And at the end of that time, they could speak for themselves. But both of them called back to say, we deeply, deeply do not believe this guy ever did anything non-consensual with any woman during any of this. He didn't coerce them. We don't believe he used his position. We don't believe he intimidated him. We simply do not. Were there sometimes consensual encounters? Yes. And will that come out in any kind of litigation or trial? Of course it will. And that's where it should come out. But I think it's important for y'all to know. And then, for instance, Laura at that time wasn't involved. She gets very involved shortly thereafter. Leah was really involved from the very beginning. We've all spent a tremendous amount of time with you. And I think it's important that maybe you hear from them as to their observations, and then I'll try to wrap up. I realize this is a Friday afternoon. This is partly me trying to apologize, but explain to y'all why we have been silent. Letitia, let me start out with you. You can use that microphone.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Rusty stated, my name is Letitia Quinones, and I've been working in the justice system now for over 22 years. One of the things that I love about the justice system and that I am truly in love with, and that is the Constitution. Because inside of the Constitution are safeguards. Safeguards to protect individuals who are accused and also who have been treated badly. And I've noticed one thing, and I'm truly concerned about it. I hope that Deshaun Watson's case is not the case where due process goes to die. It's a quote by my friend, Mr. Weiss. I am a mother of two daughters, 26 and 18. I am a woman of 49 years of age. At the level of law that I practice, I am a minority, not just because of the color of my skin, but because of my gender. And more relevant than any of those things that I've shared with you, I too am a survivor. And my colleagues, probably is the first time that they've ever heard that. And I put that out there publicly in front of you to let you know I have authority to speak on the topic that I'm speaking on. Deshaun Watson is a young man that is probably young, well, no question, he's younger than my daughter. He's young enough to be my son. And if anybody knows me, they will tell you I'm anything but weak. I'm anything but someone who will follow something just for the sake of publicity or money. I stand on much higher values than that. And from the moment that I've spent time with this young man, I have no qualms telling you that I stand here unequivocally stating the things that he has been accused of, the things that he has been persecuted for in the public, he simply has not done. You have to take a look at, if you were to purchase a vehicle, something far more minute than a person's character, a person's word, they're going to look at your credit history. And that's going to tell them when you go somewhere and ask them, can you have a vehicle that's worth $100,000 or $50,000? Whether or not they should take your word for it, that you'll pay for it. You look at Deshaun's life. He's always been a football star. In high school, that was the first time they ever won the state championship. And he took Clemson to a national title. Do you think that he wasn't getting attention from young women then? I've spoken to many people who knew him all throughout his life. And every person that we've ever spoken to, none of them believe that he's guilty of these charges. None of them believe that he has the character to commit the acts that he's been charged of. His credit history should account for something. And it disappoints me that in the media, this young man who's done everything right, who grew up in a neighborhood where he would otherwise have every reason to fall short of glory. Nothing, not a speck on his record until these lawsuits. It disheartens me that some of you, some of us will just jump on the bandwagon. And I don't discount anything that a young woman believes happened to her, because as I stated before, I too am a survivor. And I can tell you this, that when I think back over what happened to me, the first person I come in contact with to get justice wouldn't be a plaintiff's lawyer. That's something we need to think about. Other things that I just want you to think about before I sit down is simply this. The first lawsuit spells out everything, in my opinion. In that lawsuit, it states that when the young woman stated that she became uncomfortable and she voiced that to Deshaun, the massage session was stopped. He paid her what he owed her, and they left the room without incident. Not uncomfortable because of anything that he necessarily has done, but uncomfortable because of the areas that are important to him in order to be the athlete that had earned him a $160 million contract. We received an anonymous call. It wasn't anonymous, a random call from a young woman, well, she was an older woman, who knew him from a long time ago. And she described herself as a red-blooded redneck. Those were her words, not ours. And she said she was also a ballet dancer. And everything that he described about the areas that he needed massage was extremely important for him to be the escape artist that he is when he's in the pocket. And so I simply leave you with this. That young man, based on his career, out of all the obstacles in his life that he's had to face, not having a father, raised by a single mother, and the depths of neighborhood where he had every opportunity to fail, but didn't. And everyone who's come in contact with him that loves him, and his character stood on its own, he deserves the right for you guys in the public to allow this case to play out where it should, and that's in the courtroom. And I'll leave you with this. I want you to think about something when you start thinking about where he was getting massages and how many massages and reaching out on Instagram. For one thing, my children, everything they do is off Instagram. It's a new day and time. If you're going to advertise your business on Instagram, why is it a problem if a customer comes to you as a result of your advertisement? When is that wrong? What is the purpose of advertising on Instagram if I can't come to you as a result of your advertisement? But remember this, and I say this kid is 25 years old, this young man, he's a kid to me because of his age. This 25-year-old young man was thrown in the depths of something that he wasn't accustomed to. Money, fame, and stardom. A lot of these young men have to figure out they're just not normal anymore. And on the first time that I met with Deshaun and we were sitting down across from each other, I said, son, do you realize who you are? Do you realize you can't be that same kid that you were when you were in Gainesville? It's different for you now. You have to move differently now. And he sat there perplexed and he said, you're right. You're right. I realized that, but Miss Letitia, I just want to be normal. And I said, Deshaun, you can't be normal anymore because now you have a target on your back. You're a superstar, you're a famous athlete, and you just got a contract for $160 million. So I simply ask you, let due process take its course. The one thing that this nation is founded on, the one thing that makes us so special than any other country is that we afford everyone the presumption of innocence and due process. And if it's supposed to work for some folks, it should work for all. And it darn sure should work for Deshaun Watson because he's earned it. Thank you.
There are many reasons she and I have become such close friends. One reason is we both grew up in the South under different generations. We're both familiar with the preaching she just did, and I love it. because that's who she is, that's the way she feels about it, but that's the judgment that she brings in trying to decide what happened to her. I want to ask Rachel if she's got any observations. And by the way, this is really kind of unfair to her. Rachel may not tell you her age, but she shouldn't be concerned about it because she's 28. All right. But Rachel, you got anything?
So I met Deshaun about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it might come as a surprise to all of you in this room. I didn't know who he was before then. I'm not from here, and I don't watch football. And so all I knew about Deshaun was what I read in the allegations. So when I met him, I didn't know what to expect. And all of us are up here, like Rusty said, not because we're women or women of color, but because we believe in him. We have spent every day fighting for him since he came to our firm. And I personally have spent hours with him. And I can tell you that this man is not capable of the things that are in the allegations. He is not that man. He is not a sexual predator. And I feel very strongly to say he has not forced, coerced, intimidated, or threatened any woman to do anything to him. I have watched day after day as lawsuits have come out, as the media has come out, how this has affected him. He shared with me that he has trouble sleeping and eating. It's not only affected him, it's affected everyone that's connected to him, his family. He has worked so hard for his name. And what I have found out about him is he cares deeply about the city, about his communities. He takes every opportunity he can to give back. Spending time with him, I've realized he's humble, he's respectful, he's honestly quiet and mild-mannered. And just to see the way that these women and Mr. Buzbee have tried to tear him down, it's very upsetting to me. Like I said, I feel like he has spent his entire life trying to do the right thing. We spent a lot of time talking to him about how he was raised, his work ethic, his love of God, his religion, and what that plays in life. And I would ask everyone to not rush to judgment. We are going to fight every day so that you all see the Deshaun that we know and that we've come to know. And, I would just say that his name is something that he has not only worked hard for. No one has ever questioned his character or his reputation until this point. And we are not going to allow these women or Mr. Buzbee take that away from him. He is a good man. He does not deserve this. And I know that everyone will see that. They will, if you will allow the legal process to play out the way it's supposed to play out, you will see the man that we know. Thank you.
Leah Graham is a master at getting a bunch of stuff together very quickly. We've looked at all the social postings of Mr. Buzbee through all this. None of us as lawyers have ever experienced this kind of thing. This kind of dribble out 2 here, wait till you write that story. Then 3 here, wait till you write that story. 4, 3, always, as I've said repeatedly, anonymously. And to what end? Leah, I want to ask if you came at it after, really, I think, they got back from visiting with Deshaun. You don't have anything to say?
Good afternoon. Along with these women, I have worked on this case from the very beginning, actually. I have had an opportunity to get to know Deshaun Watson. I have spent time with him. I have spent time with women who know him personally, who have worked with him professionally. And what I want all of you to know is that there is another side to this story, a side that has not yet been told. One fact that I actually found very interesting about Deshaun is that he doesn't have an entourage. He doesn't have a staff. He books and schedules his own dentist appointments. Knowing that about him, does it surprise you that he would also schedule his own massage therapy sessions? Knowing that, is it odd that he would schedule these therapy sessions on the primary platform, and in some cases, the exclusive platform that these massage therapists use to market themselves? I think there is another side to this story that I am confident that we will be able to tell. I think that today's victories
in helping us to identify who these accusers are will go a long way in helping us to share our story and to show you and to prove in court that Deshaun Watson is not the man that the plaintiffs want you to believe that he is. And I'm confident at the end of the day, in a court of law, we will prove that he is not guilty of the allegations being made against him.
I don't want to, finally, I don't want to discriminate against Laura. So I'll ask Laura. I hadn't told her that I would ask her to see if she had anything she wanted to add.
Everything that these women have said, I fully support 100%. I've watched us all work hard and spending time with Mr. Watson and to really understand who he is. And I deal with rules. That's kind of my thing. And what I do is have the utmost faith in the process. And so I really look forward to our ability to play on an even playing field in court where we can show that Mr. Watson, as Leah said, isn't the man that the plaintiffs and Mr. Buzbee would like to portray.
So I'm about through and didn't take your questions if you have any. I don't want to feel like people have to stay here longer than, as I said, your Friday afternoon does. A couple of things I want to finish with. One is Leah has said, he's not guilty. Well, the irony of that statement is these are civil cases, but they've been conducted like a criminal case in the media. None of these women are suggesting that they were sexually assaulted in the sense of any type of penetration or anything. As I've read them, only 2 or 3 that claim there was any force used. Most of them are women who say they felt uncomfortable, didn't approve of what portions he wanted it done, rubbed or so. Many of them are unfamiliar with the type of massages he was asking for. All of those are facts to be sorted out later. The problem with this first investigation, it's too late probably to change people's minds. And that's tremendously sad. But all I really wanted to do through this press conference, and all we wanted to do as we talk to these judges in public hearings now, is not to extrajudicially litigate the individual cases and facts, but it is simply to try to move the needle back to the middle. In the hearing today, Mr. Buzbee, in both hearings, he pointed out the criticism these women have gotten on social media. That's wrong. Let me tell you now before we wrap up. Every single person up here has been a women's advocate, including myself. And all 4 of these women have been strongly women's advocates. And in my case, as a prosecutor for over 15 years, I tried cases numerous times of sexual nature and assault on behalf of women. I mentioned to court this morning that in the criminal justice system, I routinely tried cases in which the woman's name was not used in the indictment. That's because the law allowed that, and it was appropriate. I think if you go behind Letitia's comment, the point is we wanted to encourage women to go to law enforcement, investigate these cases, and prosecute the wrongdoers. We have said from the beginning we will totally cooperate with that process, and that still hasn't changed. But it is only fair to ask, can't we just at least put that needle back in the middle? There was a labor secretary during the Nixon administration that is the source of that quote many of you have heard, when he was congratulated on being found not guilty, and he stood on the courthouse steps in New Jersey and said, now where do I go to get back my reputation? Where did I go to get back my new good name? That is going to be part of the challenge for us and something that we're incredibly dedicated to trying to correct. But for the public message is, please don't denigrate these women for coming forward. Don't be writing all this social media stuff criticizing them. That doesn't do anything but demean all of us. Make your decision about their complaints based on later what you find out, either through media investigating before there's a trial or before there's a court or whatever. Mr. Buzbee has said on social media he believes in the publicity angle to try to sort out other victims and somebody that he's suing on behalf of, other victims of the bad guy that he's suing in his point of view, in his mind. And he wants to encourage the public to investigate, the media to investigate. I second that. But there's no room for attacking these women. And we have not done it. And we will not do it. We may, in individual situations, disagree with them about facts, as you've heard. But the entire process of the social fabric of our country and our society demands that a woman not be attacked for making an allegation. And we're never going to beat up on anybody before they have earned it in public at the great expense of our client. But I hope that people listening or who read this will recognize there is no place for doing that. And you need to leave these women alone. A searching examination of them and their background and whether they have a motive or anything, that's what the system always does. And that's appropriate because we do not believe the allegations. And so we'll be challenging them. But we're not going to be encouraging people to attack these women. I think at the end of the day, if we get it to where people stop and say, you know what, maybe all these things aren't true. Why don't we wait and see what else develops? Why don't we see who and what is true here? We will have made some progress. But I want to thank y'all for being here. And by the way, I would also say to use those of you who are the haters who write all these horrible things about Deshaun, because see, I pointed out in court this morning, there are just as many bad things being said about Deshaun or more or worse than there have been about any of the women. Haters on both sides, take a blank vacation, please, and let the system work. Now, do you have any questions?
Are you saying that Deshaun reached out to these women on Instagram for massages and then engaged in consensual sex acts with some of the women?
I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to take the mask off. I'm apologizing for myself. I have trouble hearing through it. Do you mind saying it again, please?
So are you saying that on Instagram, Deshaun reached out to some of these women on Instagram, booking a legitimate massage and then engaged in consensual sex acts with some of these women?
No, I'll put it another way. I mean, you could get that from what I'm saying, that in some of these massages, there's going to be no question. We've never run from it. Our first announcement. Always been that on some occasions, some sexual activity would have taken place. I'm not going into what it is or how, the nature or the numbers or with whom, but I think you can rightfully assume that. The question always that we have always been emphasizing, never at any time, under any circumstances, just as Letitia said, that this young man ever engaged in anything that was not mutually desired by the other party.
Have you heard from HPD or the NFL, and so what have those conversations been? Sorry, do you want me to say it again?
I'm going to repeat questions if that's okay with y'all, because some of you are in the back. The question was if we heard from HPD about this or the NFL. We have not heard anything from HPD, and I suspect they're going to be incredibly careful in light of the allegations Mr. Buzbee made about a family connection. Most of the time, I wouldn't expect to until they have talked to a bunch of witnesses. I think one reason we've always encouraged these women to report these offenses, that they contend are offenses, for two reasons. I believe that's where this kind of thing always ought to start, is with law enforcement. And the second is, I think responsible law enforcement, and I believe these folks have, I haven't met them, I don't know what officers have the case, for instance, is going to want to talk to all these people, because they're all potential witnesses to the nature of their conduct. Sorry. So short answer, after a long answer, is no. I have not heard from HPD at all. I have not also heard from the NFL, but the NFL usually does the same thing. They want law enforcement, particularly once the case is reported to law enforcement. The history of these is the NFL may be privately gathering documents and information they can, but they generally try to wait until law enforcement is full of their investigation before they do something, because that's really the only thing is fair to both sides. So, no, we have not been in touch with any representatives of the NFL nor the police, but we do understand both are looking at it.
Rusty, I know you haven't heard from HPD, but do you know how many criminal complaints have been filed against Deshaun? I know one was publicized,
Yeah.
but Tony said there was 2 or 3. So.
No, Tony is our only source of information on that. My understanding is in his last press conference, he said 2 women had. Now, whether some others have come forward, I don't know. Now that so what do we have? So she had 12 and 1, so 13 cases. he's been ordered to mend. He's indicated he's probably going to mend all of them now with the women's names. If I don't know whether that number has changed, but I would encourage any and all of those women who believe that they've been wrong to report it to the police. I strongly am an advocate of that. Anytime a woman thinks she has a legitimate complaint, she should go to law enforcement and be encouraged. In fact, one of the things that bothered us is this idea that he didn't trust HPD, so that discourages women to do it. And I think that's wrong.
Michael, hello. Michael, hello. Are you taking questions? Thank you. Hello, I don't know how this is working, but I'll go ahead and ask my question. In the case of the other lawsuits in Buzbee, the illegal use of Jane Doe, what will you do about that? Will you file a countersuit to seek damages for defamation of character? Thank you.
Was available to be here today. He was in my office. I think I saw you right after we left court to say he might or may not be here because it was going to be a decision made at the last minute. And I finally decided, since we weren't going to allow him to answer y'all's questions, what the hell was he doing sitting up here? I mean, it was just listen to all of us talk about him. So ultimately it didn't make sense. But what he wants more than anything is to get back his reputation. You're right. Money, yes. Yeah, please. Letitia has something. Go ahead. You may.
I was going to say, I can tell you this wholeheartedly, what he wants you to know, because we've had these conversations millions of times. He wants you to know that his mother raised a respectable young man. He wants you to know that he is responsible to his communities, to the women that grew up around him, and to women he doesn't know, including the 2 women when he got his first check, that he gave them a portion of it because he told someone he would, and he kept his word on that. He wants you to know that he is a man of character, a hard-working young man who has earned everything that has ever been given to him, and that he would not throw it away by disrespecting young women and assaulting them sexually because he doesn't have that to do. And so when you ask what would he want you to know, he would want you to know that his mother raised a respectable young man who would never violate a woman's conscience because it would violate his own.
And he would want you to know that the full tapestry of his life is relevant in trying to decide the validity of these charges. He wants you to do exactly what Letitia said earlier. Take into consideration what he has been like until all this happened in the public mind and make that a relevant piece of evidence. He would want you to know he didn't ask those 18 women to come forward. He didn't do that. And we didn't ask most. Most of them contacted us. And we never suggested the fact that 18 women spoke so well of him, and there were many more, that meant therefore he wasn't guilty of anything wrong. We meant only as you go to make up your mind about whether this guy is the demon and the sexual predator that he's been accused of by Mr. Buzbee, as you go make up your mind, look at all these factors, the very things that she's talking about, the full tapestry of that man's life. Because in all due respect, what we witnessed here is a new model for extortion. That's all. You bleed it out, you keep saying it, and you keep talking about it. You say it's not about money when the whole thing happened. One of the things I haven't seen y'all talk about much that might be worth noting. One of the women that testified at the press conference on Wednesday, or was there and spoke, the issue was, she said, this is not about money. But the fact is, if Deshaun's people you've since seen in writing, if they had been willing to pay her $100,000, she would never have said a word. Now, I don't know how she was willing to go forward, and she has every right to do that if she thinks she has a right for suit. But when you're somebody like Deshaun, well, wait a minute, she wanted me to pay $100,000, and she would never say anything about it. And only when we said we wouldn't pay are these allegations made. Is it unheard of for a demand to be made in civil litigation? No, it's not unheard of. Is it wrong for somebody to make a demand? No. But those are all relevant facts in deciding the credibility of the facts. And what Deshaun would want is, isn't the way I've led my life before these allegations at least relevant in deciding whether I did what I'm being accused of now? And we think it is. He would want you to have, as an act of faith, he didn't do it until somebody proves he did.
Mr. Hardin, 2 questions. The first one, you've mentioned 150 massages a year. Right now, we know 40 women that have come forward, 22 accusing him of sexual assault, 18 who are defending his actions or the process. The question the public has right now is why? Why seek so many massage therapists?
Yeah, think about it. The numbers I started out. Think about it. Just figure out how many massages, 2 to 3 a week. And that's been his schedule for about 4 years. These are all on this. And those 18 were not just for the year 2020. These allegations, I think that, as I said, I think all 22 have to do with 2020. You have to remember the landscape and the availability of all of these things changed for 2020, the middle of March of 20 till now. And sure, it's a lot. And the reason is because he got a lot of massages.
But during COVID, why go through so many different people exposing themselves to that?
Well, that's a very valid question, because the answer is there's not some group sitting out there waiting to give massages. And the NFL doesn't have them. The teams don't have them. I think one of the big misunderstanding is, I think if you check with most players, some players I read say, well, I usually pick the same person and try to use that person as possible. All of that changed last year. You didn't have a group of people over in your room ready to get. And let's just talk about, I don't really want to belabor this too much, but let's look at his schedule. He's a quarterback. He's a pro quarterback. His schedule is longer than everybody else's, and it's more unpredictable. He may not know until 11 o'clock at night what time he's got available tomorrow. Some of these 18 women, and by the way, we just quit at 18 because I was determined not to try to do 23 and 22 or any of that silliness. These are women who are willing to put their name to it, unlike the women who sued us. That's a relevant factor for people to consider. At any rate, he would want to say is he'd call up one of these spas and say they had like 5, 6, 7 masseuses. I need a massage at 3. Do you have somebody available? And so that would do it. And the next time it might be somebody else. But you do 2 to 3 a week. And he, unlike a lot of athletes that think we'll find, he did that more consistently even in the off season than most. Some of them dropped down in the off season. Deshaun didn't. Deshaun, as Letitia talked about, the woman he was talking about is a woman who wrote me and that I called and told me the things Letitia was talking about. She talked about he earns his money in his balance and his ability and his strength and his ability to escape. She'd been watching him since he was junior high do that. Those kind of things were what he wanted worked on his massages, and he got a bunch of them, no question.
And then one follow-up, Ms. Quinones said that he never coerced women to do anything, but according to Buzbee's screenshots of messages, he asked women to wear specific things. If he's getting massages, why does it matter what a massage therapist is wearing?
Oh, you're off on other stuff. I could start doing all of that with the facts, et cetera. Yeah, I'm really not going to get into what Tony has said, because that's a long trip down the line. We'll be glad to answer all of those questions. There'll be depositions, there'll be everything else. And I think at the end of the day, I want to look for something that's wrong, not something that somebody is saying in a personal injury lawsuit. Yes.
So is there still 9 cases that still need to be approved, I guess, or granted?
Yeah, but actually, thank you for bringing that up. Go ahead. I don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
So my question for that was, how many are still waiting for this emergency motion? And then in addition to that, when will you hear about these names? And then can you just touch on the consolidation agreement that you guys?
Pardon me?
The consolidation agreement that you guys agreed on.
Yeah,
today.
real quickly. So what she's talking about is, so what's left the motion hasn't been granted, and what was the agreement? The agreement that Mr. Buzbee and I reached is all of the cases, we think that the judges are going to order all of them there, but that's still up to the judges to their order. All of them will go to this particular judge this morning at 11, Judge Collier, for all pretrial matters. When a case gets ready to be tried and gets to that stage, then that case will go to the judge whose court it was originally filed in. So all of the discovery and depositions and all of that things will probably be combined before Judge Collier for all 22 cases, probably, but the individual judges are going to make the decision. So right now, only 13 cases have been spoken for. However, Mr. Buzbee's indicated and asked before we came over, if we agree to amend the one that's scheduled for a hearing this afternoon at 4, will y'all take that down? And we have. So the 4 o'clock one is off. So now we're at 14. So we really, we're at 8 cases left. And my guess is that the same ruling will ultimately be decided. But those judges all still have the right to make their individual ruling. Does that make any sense?
Deshaun has maintained innocence from the get-go. So what's his take on why this is happening? Why does he think that these women started all of this? He says he's innocent.
First of all, he doesn't have a take. I mean, he's dumbfounded. He is truly dumbfounded. If y'all remember, the landscape of these cases and the public attitude really kind of changed when the third lawsuit was filed. And that was because my phone's going off is what I'm messing around with here. Hold on. I used to have a judge that would not let anybody leave the courtroom until they surrendered their phone and confessed. So confession's not always good for the soul. I think that for him, think about this. Watching this whole thing, the number of courts, the number of lawsuits, the constant pressure, it's like watching sausage making to an incredibly different level. I mean, if you're the average citizen that's never been caught up in anything like this, is insane. I mean, that's really his reaction. When I told him of that first allegation in the third lawsuit that somehow he used force in something, I didn't know him at the time. When I told him, he was in disbelief. He asked me 2 or 3 times, I forced her? He'd go, and then he just started crying. That's his reaction. And that's the thing for y'all to remember. We don't cry about things that we did. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hardin, you have discussed some of the details and the allegations. Another one that was consistently brought up was Mr. Watson nude. Do you have any response to these accusations that he was nude and they were making them uncomfortable? I'm apologizing. Would you say both your lead in again and then the question? Because I wasn't sure I heard all of it. Of course. So you went through some of the, you addressed some of the specific allegations in these suits. One of those that was consistent was the allegations that Mr. Watson was nude, and that wasn't something that the masseuse had agreed upon or was comfortable with. Do you have any response to those allegations?
Well, I've since learned through this that nudity is not rare in these massages. So I wasn't aware that anybody agreed one way or the other to that at the beginning. So I would have to see what the individual woman did and see how she responds when questioned about it. I'd be a little surprised if masseuses really were shocked or surprised or uncomfortable with a man wanting to be nude. I think you'll find, and many of these women talked about it, the 18 that were willing to put their name to it. It's not unusual that a lot of these guys would prefer that. And all that happens is the therapist says, no, I'm going to put a sheet over you. And that's it. And that's what their experience was. So I don't understand that allegation. And I think that's something that will be dealt with in individual cases.
And further, again, some of the lawsuits said that he refused. Have you addressed that with your client?
No, look, first of all, we don't know who that is. That's been part of the problem for him to recall. But that'll get taken care of in the next week or two.
Well, both, I think, Ms. Solis and Lauren Baxley had said that he was nude and that they were not comfortable with that. Have you been able to address
look, here's the thing.
allegations?
I'm trying very, very hard not to condemn or fuss about any of the individuals. I will say to you, if that is the case, why does one go forward? But I don't know what the true facts were. I haven't met them. I've seen them. One in the press conference, and I gather in the letter. Are you saying the second lady said that too in the letter? Because there are only two people I
Right,
know.
Lauren Baxley and
Lauren Baxley.
Miss Ashley Solis.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Look, I'm not going to get into the individual matters, but I would ask people to look and see if that makes sense. Yes, ma'am.
First quick thing, do you guys intend to fight these in trial, all 22 cases?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, absolutely.
And then second thing, so one thing that we've learned just as a nation over the last 3 years, really, or since 2017, I think, is that some good guys are capable of really terrible things. And so I just wanted to bring that to you and see what your answer to that would be. And maybe you could kind of elaborate on some of the challenges that y'all might be kind of up against in
Now,
that
let me see
realm.
if I understand. Is the question that you've learned over time that guys are capable of doing horrible things?
I'm bringing forward the.
I'm not arguing with it. I mean, I'm about to say amen. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I was trying to make sure, is that your question?
What I wanted to have you guys, or I wanted to challenge you guys with the, I guess, the defense or whatever that some sexual assault survivors would say is that some good men are capable of doing terrible things.
And I think that's absolutely right. I don't disagree with that. And look, I don't take a back seat to my admiration and support of sexual assault survivors for 1 minute. I deeply believe that is an issue and a situation, and that hugely high percentage of accusations may ultimately turn out to be true. But equally, we shouldn't be making that decision based on one side's accusation. What we're saying here is that if I have a disagreement with people with a particular point of view here is, I hope we never reach a stage that because a particular crime is has such horrible consequences for the woman when it happens, and so that because the potential for damage is so great that we automatically believe the allegation just because it's been made. And all I am asking here is that we give this man the same benefit that the woman should get. The woman should get the benefit of the belief she may be telling the truth. The man should get the benefit also of being not guilty of it until we have some proof. And we're throwing the baby out of the bathwater out at the same time in a lot of cases. But are there men that do horrible things? Absolutely. Sometimes women do too. And I just would like everybody to reserve judgment until they have evidence. I don't want to keep you much longer. Do you have just a
Mr.
couple
Hardin,
more
one quick
questions?
question. Are you okay with when in all of the cases, if the women do decide to reveal their identities, to make sure that that is just given between the two camps, but not made public, to, like you mentioned, prevent the women, if they are identified, from getting, like we saw today, Mr. Buzbee say that Ashley Solis has gotten rape threats. Are you willing to make sure that those names aren't public, but just revealed to you, to your team and to your client?
No. I believe it is important in the open courts. We've said it this morning. The open courts provision and the statute and the law in Texas says we are entitled to know who the accuser is and is the public. The open courts provision is the public is entitled to know. And I would hope the only way these accusations or these allegations can be looked at as thoroughly as y'all have looked at us is for you to know who the accuser is, just like us. I think that when somebody makes this kind of accusation, it is only appropriate for people to look into the accuser as well as the accused. Because how else do you know? All right. Anybody else? Hey, thank y'all a lot. I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mary. Much appreciated. Well, folks, I am going to now release the this StreamYard link. And if any of you wants to chime in and provide your take, please do so. What I mean by that is on video, not audio. Audio will not be accepted. Video will. So I want to see who you are. That's the way we work here. This is not Facebook. And so there it is. As far as this was, I feel sorry. I come away from this feeling really sorry for Deshaun Watson, because this was an absolute blindside, you know? And there's no question, there's no other way to describe it than it's a blindside. And leave this meeting here. And I'll go back here. It's a blindside. And to everybody watching this right now, is 131 of you. I want you to take this with you, okay? We're in a dangerous period where people can take social media, all right, and use it to harass people or person, say things about them that aren't true, and quite literally establish a kind of a kangaroo court. And we have to have laws that are made tighter to or new to prohibit such behavior, because this is the quintessential action of what I've called before. I call it a high-tech lynching. Okay, Tony Buzbee admitted that that I think Keith Sims is coming in. Tony Buzbee admitted, Keith, are you going to provide your camera? Took away his camera, I think. Okay. Tony Buzbee admitted that he acted in a way that was illegal in using the Jane Doe strategy. Okay, he admitted that. So basically, he just said, "Oh, you know, he quite possibly planned this." I think he did. Took 22 massage therapists. Maybe all of the names are not real. We'll find out, because Tony's known for that. And made it, and then rolled them out one by one, as if they were press releases. And then organizations like Yahoo would take, all right, would take those lawsuits. They would digitize them and print them verbatim in all their salaciousness, okay? And I'm not going to allow that. In a second. And I'm not going to do that. Okay. And so and then they would come out and simply, without fear, without question, and do this in a sense anonymously. Somebody just tried to come on here anonymously, thinking that I was going to post their avatar, as if I don't know what I'm doing with these things. You know, just horrible, and completely horrible. But you have people out there who are like that. They're just horrible. And they insist on being horrible under, okay. Christopher, I'm going to get some comments here. Chris Wood says, God used Deshaun Watson as bait. Between that lawyer in Texas and the Texans, they're getting ready to catch. If they think this winter is rough in Texas, like it's going to be really big. By the way, for those of you who want to say something, here is, as I said before, here's the link. But if you think I'm going to allow you in under anything other than a real name, verifiable, I have a way of quickly verifying it, you can fucking forget it. I'm saying it just like that. Don't be a fool or a kid and think you can play games in here, because it's not going anywhere. I won't allow it. You're not going to get away with it. So you might as well just go someplace else. Bye-bye, little one. Okay? All right? No, trolls are... This is an anti-troll territory. We are not nice to trolls. And the way we are not nice to trolls is we simply ignore trolls. We don't let them in. And we ban them. Okay? So if you're the kind of terrible person that thinks you can get away with that here, leave. Okay? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Now, as I was saying, and this is it. Yeah, this is it. A high-tech lynching, Sean. And not only that, why would Tony Buzbee do this? He has a track record of going after high-profile black men. He did it with Kevin Sumlin after the then coach of Texas A&M blew that 40-plus point lead to UCLA, and Tony was a regent, so he takes out a billboard, then tries to get Cal McNair involved. All right. And then he ran for, thank you. And then he ran for mayor in 2019, but he didn't do it the clean way. He did it the Tony way, where he created a fake text message, said that the mayor had the text message, okay? And said the mayor had the text messages, but he did this. And then when a reporter asked him if he actually had the text message, he said, well, no, I don't. He'd never seen the text message, yet he wrote a text message as if he had it and had seen what was on it. That's what Tony Buzbee does. Okay? All right? That's what Tony Buzbee does. And that aspect of this has to be considered. This is a man who has no problem flouting the law to achieve an objective. And that's what he did. That's what he did. He took all of these Jane Doe filings, knowing it was against the law, trotted them out like they were hand sanitizer, which they were to a press that acted like they needed hand sanitizer to clean their hands during the coronavirus. The press didn't know it was illegal. He did. And then he made comments behind it, right? Yeah. And then Jasmine Brooks. And one of the reporters today tried to ask about the text message, and Jasmine Brooks, all right, yeah. And I have all the Jasmine Brooks statements right here on my network on Oakland News Now. Right here. Okay. And which I'm going to present for you, because if you just go to Oakland News Now right now, all right, and scroll down, okay? Let me show you. And scroll down right here. Here it is. Excuse me. Getting the share screen. And working on the share screen to come up, but it's actually one of the front page posts. All right. Yeah, here we go. It's one of the front page posts on Oakland News Now. There's Oakland News Now. And all you got to do, folks, scroll down, right there. Okay. And then click. And there's, if you don't want to read, you can simply click on this, right? And I talked to you right here about this post that you see that I'm about to scroll through, which these were this is what they were referring to in the press conference. Watch. Once again, tries to make it look like Watson sent text messages that would paint him in the guise of a person, an NFL player, the quarterback, basically trolling for therapists to have inappropriate relationships with. And this publication, for example, reads, Watson has been accused of inappropriate behavior by 22 women, all of whom work in the wellness industry in some capacity. And first of all, that's not true, because until Mr. Buzbee trots out all 22 as, someone like Gloria Allway would do, as opposed to one, which he did do, that this claim cannot be made. But I digress. It says, this week, a series of disturbing text messages, public, each of which continues to paint a dark picture. That's what it reads, okay? And it says, it reads, it's likely that these text messages, to some degree, contributed to the decision by Watson's corporate sponsors to cut ties. And then this goes on to say the texts speak for themselves. Something like this is fine. It's on here. In the way these are designed, okay, they are, once again, screenshots that purport to be text messages, some of them here, and they take bits and pieces of exchange. Like, for example, guys, do this, is disgusting. Yep, I'm very proud of her. Just IMK me if she wants me to talk with him. It's him, nor the one who coordinates with his therapist when I can't make it due to the issue, actually. So I am very close to his team. I will ensure his team handles him. I'll be talking to her tomorrow. I'll let you know. Thanks. Sounds good. Have a good night. You too. And then it breaks and it says, as a Texans, it sucks, but just like a regular client, in my experience, usually try the first time, then stop. If it's Deshaun, I'll call his manager or agent on behalf. I mean, you don't know the real context of this, okay? But it's being put forward, and it says, my advice to her would be to know that she did nothing. It's not her fault. These guys used to never being told no, and women throw themselves at them daily. It's easier said than done, but shake it off. There's nothing she could have done to deter it. Now, what exactly does that mean? And then it says, then it breaks, and there's another one, all right? So this goes on, and there's another one that says block them. It's all put together to form a narrative that is negative to Deshaun Watson. And these are separate, okay? So all of this, like, for example, I know this is crazy. I told you to stop working with me a while, all right? This all came to the attention of a woman who is a massage therapist and was a client, or whether they had Deshaun Watson as a client. And it is this person, and her name is Jasmine Brooks. At her Instagram page, this is what she put up. And I have to note one thing, folks. Ms. Brooks, just one moment. I have to note one thing. Ms. Brooks put her Instagram page on private since this post. Okay, let's go back. All right, let's continue. And I have put things all together, both in the description. I'm going to read them to you. Read to you right now what this reads in its entirety. It forms one page. Hey guys, I'm sure many of you are aware of the recent news regarding Deshaun Watson, an athlete I formerly worked with and many have heard my name mentioned in evidence manipulated to be used against him. The following posts serves as my statement regarding the allegations and misinformation that has been circulating around the media. And to me see if I can pull up the screenshots so you can better see these. One moment, so you can better get a glimpse of each and every one that I'm reading. I do happen to have them up and for you to see. And so it is, one moment, please. Let me go back to here and then come up and open these. There's a lot of information here to absorb in this entire, for want of a better term, situation, right? Screenshots, making sure that I had these as, one moment, let me try this another way. And let's pull these up. And show that. I'm going to fast forward just a little bit there. Here. Way. All right. So there is that, and then there is the freeze here. All right. So let's stop. Let's start here. And it should. Let's see here. It should show the freeze. It does not. Let's try that again. It's right here. We will then go to the second of these posts. So I'm going to head a little bit. It goes like this. Okay, here we go. This is the first panel. Hey guys, I'm sure many of you are aware of the recent news regarding Deshaun Watson, an athlete I formerly worked with, and many have heard my name mentioned in evidence manipulated to be used against him. The following post serves as my statement regarding the allegations and misinformation that has been circulating around the media. So we will then go to the second of these posts, which I have named as number 3. And there is number 3 there. And then there's, we go back to her, or rather the area in terms of stories. We will allow this to advance. And there is number 2. So we'll stop it there. All right. So that lines up. It should line up. It does not. Let's try that again. And again. There. And there it lines up right there. We'll stop it. And in your page, it should line up there, and there it is. All right. And we will continue to read. This reads as follows. The message thread is a conversation between myself and one of my closest friends. I simply shared that I had already stopped working with Deshaun for reasons unrelated to his current pending case and that the last few months, I've been hearing various things from another therapist who has also worked on him several times. However, none of those reasons included any of the accusations he's facing now, as I had no knowledge of any of those allegations prior to the news break. All right, now let's move along in the progression where we're at here to there. All right, and let's continue. Reads as follows. I do not know any of the victims personally, nor was the correspondence a shared conversation between a victim and myself. Buzbee is playing a very dirty game to work in favor of his clients. This deceptive use of my unrelated conversation does not change the fact that I haven't had a bad experience with Deshaun Watson. In my 3 years of working with him, he has always been a professional. My reasons for ending our professional relationship were simply due to my personal preference of not liking to work behind other therapists, as many of us don't. Additionally, I have other work and clients that took priority over my shared treatment of Watson and thought it best his other therapists take over. That's what that slide reads. Now, let's continue. And these are entries you can read in Instagram, but they go back fast if you don't want to, pause them or can't for whatever reason. And then here is the next one regarding the esthetician, to which she goes on to say this. As far as the esthetician, there was an esthetician in September that posted Watson's phone number on her public Instagram page. My warning to Deshaun was that he needs to be more careful who he works with because he doesn't know everybody's intentions, and some people will use his name for publicity, just as they are now doing. And that is her entry there. Okay. So, and that's from going back to the origin place here. This is Jas Brooks _. So, and Houston, Texas, as you can see, Master of Science, Impact Muscle Therapy is her other. There it is. She's the owner of Impact Muscle Therapy. Owner Jas Brooks, specializing in restoring the normalization of action potential. She has a master's in kinesiology. She lives in Houston. She was the 2020 Team USA muscle massage therapist. So she's no, fly by night. She's the real deal here, and in business here. So this is very damning. It's very damning against Tony Buzbee. It's very damning to those who are participating with obviously a high-tech lynching attempt on Deshaun Watson. And I use those words precisely. To take someone's text message and use them in this way. And Tony Buzbee has actually a history of this sort of activity is beyond the pale. But it also points to something even more beyond the pale in terms of behavior. The possibility that the Texans themselves were responsible for hiring Tony Buzbee to do this. This kind of sophisticated work is normally done in political campaigns. It's done when you want to completely shift how people feel about a person. Consider that on the March 30th date that Ashley Solis claimed she was treated inappropriately by Watson. The previous week, Deshaun Watson was doing what? He was sending money to restaurants in Galveston, Georgia, to various businesses in groups in Houston, Texans, to help survive the coronavirus. And he was doing this on a daily basis. In fact, he was doing it quite often. And overall, the result were a number of news stories about Watson and how he was helping people in Houston during the coronavirus in March of last year. via donations. He even got Larry Tunsil, who was then, offensive tackle. All right. He even got Laramie Tunsil. Check this out. Okay. He even got Laramie Tunsil to donate. And all you have to do is type Watson 2020 donations. Well, here's the link right here, and I'll show you the evidence what I'm talking about. And you can have a look yourself right here. Okay, there. And then I'll enlarge it so you can get a better look at what's being presented. I'll zoom in. Okay. Lions fans reporting to donate to the Watson's charity. That was November 29th. But then look at this. This is by SI itself. Deshaun Watson donates meals to Houston hospitality workers who lost their jobs. That was March 27th, 2020. Houston Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson, through his foundation, donated enough meals to feed displaced workers for the next couple of weeks in partnership with the Lee Initiative and Maker's Mark. All right. And it discussed what the Lee Initiative did. This is O'Brien video, has nothing to do with that. And then it reads, Watson's donation will provide hundreds of meals for displaced workers over the next 1 to 2 weeks. As of January 2020, the Houston restaurant industry employed approximately 265,300 employees across 12,000 restaurants, according to the Greater Houston Partnership. And the relief program was announced that Thursday, along with a place to visit online. All money raised from Houston will go directly to feeding Houston hospitality workers in need. The Lee Initiative also has active programs in the various cities listed. Every dollar counts, and we're extremely grateful for Deshaun's donation, Real Chief Owner Ryan Lacte said. We could all use something to smile about right now. He's putting food on the table. A lot of people in Houston need it. Now, how do you overcome that kind of goodwill? In the middle of this goodwill, the same person producing that goodwill is saying that they're going to leave your organization because they don't like the moves that you made. You've essentially given him money and then say, okay, now that we've given you money, you don't make demands, you have to dance and behave. If you go back and look at the tweets of the time, that's exactly what was presented. Everyone was saying, why is he suddenly wanting to leave? Okay. Malper says, man, he just said that Texas could also be liable because he asked for tables and continued for referrals. They should have known something wasn't right, so they're going to investigate. Except here's the thing, Mo Palmer, the texts that you were presented with were taken out of context. All right. So my point is, if you have this concern, I would ask Jasmine about that, since she's willing to go public on her Instagram post. My point is this, folks. Don't believe what you read on the internet. In fact, like Mo Palmer, I don't even know who you are, right? You could be working for Tony Buzbee. That's where things are today. There is no such thing as what I would call clean news in its entirety, because you're on a place where words can be easily manipulated, put together. Someone could take screenshots, put them together and say it's a text to you. And unless you're sophisticated enough to know the difference, you'd be fooled like that. That's why I said this is a high-tech lynching. This is a word that this is a term I'm going to stick to. It is a nothing less than a high-tech lynching attempt. That's where we are with this. And it's sad. It's extremely sad. So we can go on with other evidence. I'm going to stop at about 8 minutes to 7 or thereabouts. But again, my point is, when you have the Houston Chronicle, let me go back to what I was showing you. All right, the Houston Chronicle here. That was Sports Illustrated, as I showed you, right? But then you had the Houston Chronicle as well. Inside Deshaun Watson's week of giving back during the coronavirus. And Lions fans give thank you to donations to Deshaun Watson's foundation. All right. behind Deshaun Watson and Nike's uniform donation. That was later in November, all right? March 30th, look at this, March 30th, the very day, I'm gonna highlight this, March 30th, 2020 at 11:22 a.m. Deshaun Watson helps feed Houston nurses and restaurant workers, okay? I mean, there are many scores of examples, all right, of this. Okay. Hey, thank you, Mr. Woodward. Appreciate it. Thank you. Well, the whole point is what you have is a media that today, all right, I don't call myself a journalist. I'm a blogger and a vlogger. I don't claim objectivity at all. Never have. I think that is extremely disingenuous. So my point is that we're in a society today where people code, all right? And on a regular basis, your point of view is being manipulated in ways you're not even aware of. I'm gonna give you some proof that might, at its heart, appear to have absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about, but in point of fact, it has everything to do with what we're talking about. Everything. And it goes into my point about what you should be aware of and what you should know to watch out for, okay? And it will, and I'm going to pull this up in the share screen area right now, momentarily, so bear with me. But it's something I want you to see. And it's here. Oh, hey, folks, I'm going to stop. And I'm going to go up. Let me stop. Introduce it.
I'm going to stop that right there. And yeah, talk more about in present about what was seen in engage with some of your comments. There's been a lot of them. And Prince says, I'm sure Watson wasn't stupid or not thinking it through. Message so many people on IG. But Prince, I think it sounds like you didn't hear the part of the press conference where Rusty addressed that. And actually it wasn't Rusty, it was Miss Kionis that did. And she very forcefully said, look, if you have a business, like I'm on Instagram, and I would guess that probably everybody watching this now is on Instagram, or maybe not 90%. And Clubhouse too. But my point is, if you have a business on Instagram, you don't have it there without the expectation that someone's going to try to contact you. And okay. And so that's precisely what they do. But there's the other aspect of this that has to be talked about. And I referred to it once and I'll refer to it again. In 2015, TCU, Texas Christian University, conducted a study which found that from postings that they analyzed on websites related to various different massage organizations in Houston, that there were 105 of them that were engaging in some type of illegal sexual activity that one could say started with the P word. Okay. All right. And so who's to say that one of these people, one of these massage organizations that are involved in that, thought that they could put one over on Deshaun Watson? You have people out there that will use the internet to stop at nothing to sully your reputation. You have people, I remember when I first started my blog network and I brought on bloggers, there was one person I wound up firing. Why? Because he did precisely what I told him not to do. Okay? Not to do. And what he said, all right, what he said was that he basically took what other people had written and he used it as his own text, thinking that I wouldn't go through a simple search and verify what he had done. I did. I took it down. I asked him not to do it again. Guess what? The damn fool did it again. The damn fool did it again. So I had to terminate him. This was way back in 2010. And you know what boggled my mind is the kind of people that grew up thinking that that's okay to do. And some of those people who are like that are some of the people watching this right now. You need to stop, okay? Because you're not going to like it if somebody does it to you. I just made a video to criticize a woman named Caitlin Young, and I'm using her name because she basically tags me in a Facebook group because she doesn't like how I write a post, and she claims I call it an article and all this other stuff that when you start boiling it down, it makes her sound like a little 4-year-old kid rather than an adult. But she tagged me, which is the equivalent of somebody walking up to you on the street, grabbing you by the shoulder, all right, turning you around and then yelling at you. And you're wondering, what the heck is this person's problem? That's not legal. You could have that person arrested for harassment like that. You know it. Okay? You know it. But she thought she could do it with impunity in a Facebook group. So I made a video about her. So her name is out there. She said that I was defensive. I said that I was rude and defensive. I said she was rude, offensive, and racist. Guess what? In the post that she offered before I blocked her, she didn't challenge my accusing her of being racist at all. All right? As soon as I noticed that, I thought, okay, you know what? I got what I want. Bye. Get out. These are people that are in Oakland. And there's a group of folks out there who unfortunately are white, who feel like they have some sort of right to tell you as a black person what to think or what racism is or anything else. That's the time we live in today. And they're unhappy with their lot. Okay? And so basically she's being a Karen. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. She was being a massive Karen. All right? The neat aspect of Facebook is if you block someone when they tag you, guess what? All their messages go whoop. So I've just taken away her little meal ticket for the day. It wasn't even a meal ticket. Somebody who does that sort of thing is just screwed up. She doesn't like that I post. Guess what? Don't look at it. I had another guy do that to me, another person do that to me early on in another Facebook group where he said, well, you know, I follow Oakland News Now, and you don't follow journalistic things. And look, journalism advanced white supremacy, okay? The idea that you're supposed to talk to both sides and be objective, there's no such thing as objectivity. And when you talk to both sides, you'll wind up talking to somebody who's evil as all get out. And in this social media environment, those person's words could be used to activate another supporter. So guess what? You become the unwitting transfer of a message that convinces some teenager to take an action that could land that person in jail. Do you hear what I'm saying? All right. The reason why journalism is dying is people like to give their news by video. Look at this. We're on video. Okay? This is video. The best one I had last time was when people came in, used the invite that I provided, they talked on video. Those of you who tried to come in and didn't do that, as far as I'm concerned, you're not a good person. All right? People like to see your face and talk. We had three black men and a Latino come in and talk about this last time. One of the best presentations I've done. And it was spontaneous. You got their raw feelings. There are 76 of you watching this. If you don't know the story of Emmett Till, you should. Emmett Till in 1955 was supposedly going past a woman, and the woman claims made a pass at her or said something worse, but flirtatious, and then grabbed her. Emmett Till did none of those things. Emmett Till was 15 years old. Okay? Emmett Till was 15 years old. This woman's husband and brother came and beat him to a point where he was disfigured facially and launched the civil rights movement. Do you realize that same woman came forward and in Vanity Fair in 2007 admitted that she lied? Are you getting the goddamn picture now? Stop using the internet to lie on people. Stop lying about black men. Especially you out there who are black who think, oh, this will never happen to me. Don't be fooled. Do not be fooled. Okay? Do not be fooled. Because our number one problem is not a problem, it's actually a blessing. We respect institutions, or tend to, so you don't find us rioting as much for a whole host of reasons. But that respect for institutions, like the police, has gotten us into trouble time and again. And yet we haven't banded together like we should as a group to work to change more laws and work to make the police behave in our favor. All right? It reminds me when I was at Berkeley at a football game, went to Cal, and this guy, the Cal Stanford big game, everybody is every place. All right? Maybe you got a ticket in section TT row 72, but your friend is over in section U or something like that. You all are in the same frat or sorority, you all sit together. That's common standard. It's been done that way for decades. So here I am, actually with a seat that was provided to me by my friend. We're all together. This numbnuts dude says, well, you're in my seat. We're all standing and it's crowded. He couldn't even find his damn seat. Yet he's going to call the police, right? So you know what I did? I said, police, police. I'm calling the police. This guy doesn't belong here. Police. Do you know what he did? He ran. Because he thought the black guy wasn't going to call police. He was white. Fooled him. I expect the police to work on my behalf. We should expect that. Okay? All right? So now I'm going to put your comments here and comment. And so, Raiders, how you doing, my man? Basically, she's a Karen. Good acting from that witness. That was something. Accident. Yeah, exactly. Yep. And by the way, DMX, rest in peace. Wow. Stealing some other people's work, plagiarizing. That's what Joe Biden did in the 80s. Don't know about that. The woman still didn't go to jail. And Waken is saying, absolutely right regarding what I was saying. Yeah. No, I mean, you make good people very much not trust you when you take actions online like that. Or Ashley Solis, Ashley Solis said that her business suffered. All right. You mean Amy? I thought it was Ashley Solis. Is that what you mean, Raiders? I think that there's some money behind this. I think that when I hesitate, I don't want to think negatively about anybody. All right. That's why I hesitate, because you don't want to believe that there are people out there that are that bad. But they are. They really are. There are people out there who are that bad. So already people have found that her claims regarding her business not doing well are countered by posts about her business by clients as recently as, I believe, last week? Okay. He says maybe he was too flirty and got offended. I don't think that was the case at all. And see, this is what the problem is this entire business. Again, Deshaun Watson, on the day that Miss Solis claims he was at her office, and remember, nobody's provided any evidence to clear that. Just crying. Okay? No one has said, here's a receipt that proves that on this date, or we're talking about smartphones. He's a star. You mean to tell me you don't have a photograph of the star? You mean you don't? See, a sensible business person would say, oh my God, Deshaun Watson. Hey, Mr. Watson, can you help me get some more clients? Can you say that you were here on this date? All right. Why did she not do that? Unless, of course, she herself was up to no good in seeking an illicit contact. Okay? I'm just asking. All right? The reason why I paid so much attention to this, among others, and says, did she sign an NDA? I believe she said she did, but if you sign an NDA, that sounds to me like an admission that you intend to do something a little weird. NDAs work both ways. Non-disclosure agreements are not one way. It's not like, hey, you sign an agreement, you can't talk to me. Non-disclosure agreements are bilateral, all right? Period, end of story. It means that both people won't talk about it. That's it, okay? That's what it means, all right? You don't sign an NDA unless you're going to do the blankety blank 4-letter word, all right? She signed it willingly. What happened? Did she not get enough money? As was the case by someone else who said that, he only gave her $300. What did you expect? $3,000? You see how this doesn't look good. Now, I don't know how the NFL is, if that's the case. All right. For Deshaun's case, as far as I'm concerned, he's just saying, I don't know you. But if there's an NDA that's signed, what it looks like is they had consensual sex. She didn't talk about it. But if she's found to be a prostitute or something like that, oh my Lord, that could go so much the wrong way for her. But I'm saying to you that TCU has a study on this. You're saying I should produce it because it's the internet. Yeah. And it's TCU 2015 2015 Houston massage therapist and prostitution. Okay, that's what I'm typing here. And here, okay. Let's look at this. I just found a ton of this. All right. Look at this. I'm gonna read to you. I'm gonna put this up. Hold a second. Let me go back and then put up the what I found. Okay. You're gonna love this. Hopefully my okay, you're gonna love this. That's the wrong thing. That was the invite. Share screen. There. Oh, here we go. And there we go. All right. Allow. Voila. Let me read to you what you're looking at, folks. Let me see if I can enlarge it to help you read it. Okay. Let's zoom in. Zoom in. And zoom in. Okay. What does it read? It reads, estimating demand for illicit massage businesses in Houston. That's the first one. Here's another one. Massage therapists fight misperception fueled by arrest. All right. That gives us a bad name, someone was quoted, when they uncover massage places performing prostitution. Okay. Here's another one. Your neighborhood massage parlor could be a front for, all right. And, all right. Okay. And then massage parlor raid. This is in 2016. This is in Houston. Leads to 14 prostitution arrests. Okay. All right. The world of sex trafficking in teens in Fort Worth, Texas. Oh my God. So my point is, who's to say? All right. Okay. I just typed this. So there's a lot of explaining to do for those that are trying to say that Deshaun Watson did something to them as massage therapists, because it looks to me like what I said it was from the start. I said from the start, this is a shakedown. What are the kind of person like other than Deshaun Watson? What other kind of person takes his entire week to make sure that food is gotten to Gainesville, Georgia, to Houston food banks, to churches, to make sure that they're all whole? Firefighters during the pandemic. Who does that other than Deshaun Watson? And not once in a while. This guy's doing this at a clip. And he's getting other players to do it too. This guy's got so much goodwill behind him that it's unimaginable that he could do something really bad to anybody. But it is imaginable. Hey everybody, I'm back. No, it's not over. What happened was that the computer overheated, and I should have restarted it, but I didn't, and so it shuts off after a point when it's get a little bit too much. I've got a lot of files I got to dump, so I knew what happened when I get caught up in the moment of explaining something. It always happens to be at the time. But as I was saying, okay, this doesn't look good, and this could wind up casting an extremely negative light on the Houston massage therapy industry. All right. If it is found in particular that this is kind of some type of mass setup on the part of a ring of massage therapists who are trying to extort athletes, and they happen to pick Deshaun Watson as their patsy because he's nice and everything else, and he gives money and yada, yada. Even worse, if the Texans knew about hey, if the Texans were the ones helping him and encouraging him to get massage therapists, okay, I seriously doubt that this happened without the knowledge of the Texans. In fact, I know it did not. I'm not going to say who told me. I know that it did not. Then it casts an even worse light on the Texans in terms of the actions that they would take to smear a player who they felt perhaps was too much in control of their public relations. Okay? That looks like where this is all headed to me. It really does. It's always the same, that the truth is always in the middle. Okay? And so it's not. Now, someone mentioned OJ, and I'm not going to. I mean, you can't compare those two to Deshaun Watson because they're black and they're entertainers or athletes, because that makes you look like a racist. All right. So I'm just saying, it makes you look like a massive racist. It really does. Okay. All right. So, because I could say that everybody thought Donald Trump was a great guy. All right.
Deshaun Watson is not a murderer. He didn't murder anybody.
No, he isn't. There are some people who are. I think I'll just block this person. There's some people who get on here who just, they say things, and so and they're.
You don't want no idiots on your program.
No, I don't want idiots on my program, because they could simply have mentioned Donald Trump and then 24 women, I think it was, or something like that. Hello. Okay. So just saying. I mean, let's not take this in that direction either way.
It's not worth talking about anyway.
It's like, well, I've got this. I've got later. Yeah. So anyway, my point is. See here. No, he's not. Not at all. So anyway, I think this is. I think what this is going to reveal is that Watson was very naive to trust certain people, and that those people conspired against him, and they could very well be put out of business if they take it that far. Okay. Thank you, Kingfish. Thank you. In either case, it isn't good, but I encourage everybody out there, be your best self to people. Don't get online and say things that aren't true under another name, because a lot of you don't use your real names, okay? This is, this just, happens to be right over here. I'll just basically say, okay, this is my real name, okay? So my point is, use your real name, be nice to people. And if you don't have anything nice to say, don't tag somebody and say it on a social media or go after them. All right. Yeah. And that's something else I've noticed about the press conference. Did you notice by the voices that there are a lot of young people asking the questions rather than seasoned adult professionals? They sounded like people who might work for one of those, right-wing blogs or something that just got out of college or something like that. And I said because they sound like they haven't lived enough life to understand what people go through. And they only have their ideologies and their prejudices about people. And yet they're paid to do the news. That's bad. That is a bad mix. Okay. And they call themselves journalists. I don't call myself a journalist. All right, folks. We've been on for 2 hours, 13 minutes, and 58 seconds. I want to thank you. I'll be back. All right. And this is very one-sided and problematic. Very true, Ben. Very true. All right. The side eye. I like that. Thanks, everybody. And peace, love, and soul. And oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that could happen too. That could happen too. See you, everybody. Thank you. That ends this broadcast.